Welcome to the Business Blueprint, where entrepreneurs and business leaders learn how to work smarter, scale faster, and build better.
Well, good morning and welcome to the Business Blueprint. I am your host, Joe Sandeen. Today's going to be a fun show. Got one of my favorite entrepreneurs in the Fargo-Moorhead community with me, Jake Joraanstad. He's the co-founder and CEO of Bushel. They're one of the region's most successful technology companies serving the agricultural industry. I've known Jake for a long time, going all the way back to his college days, when they were in the incubator and doing Myriad Mobile. And Jake's had a great run of doing awesome stuff in the tech world. And so today we're going to talk about Jake's beginning. We're going to talk about the Bushel story, get into some AI and techie stuff, and then maybe go off the cuff a little bit and talk about some personal things and just wherever it takes us. So Jake, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Joe.
All right, so where I want to start is, so you've been an entrepreneur, I think, pretty much your whole career, going back to, so you were an NDSU grad, 2008 to 2012. Just take us back to the beginning. How did you, was entrepreneurship in your blood? How did you get started? What brought you on to starting Myriad Mobile at the beginning? Just kind of go back to the beginning a little bit for us.
So my dad was a banker, and my mom was is a nurse. Dad passed away when I was young, 12 years old. And I had never heard the word entrepreneurship, to be honest, until I was in college. So I had ideas, and I loved working with people on different ideas and projects. And I learned that was a skill that was helpful in college to recruit my friends to help me pass my classes. I was computer engineering, way more challenging than I expected it to be. I did really well in high school, and college was hard. Like engineering classes, math, et cetera, was challenging for me. So I got good at recruiting people to help me so we could work together on stuff, right? I'd buy the pizza, have the room, get people to show up, and then I could learn and try to pass my classes. And throughout that, I met some teachers that shared these idea groups that were going on. And one of them was just like, hey, come and write your idea down, and then let's talk about how we could turn it into a business. And I had never thought in my life that I was going to do something like that. I was thinking I got to go work at Google, Microsoft, some of the coolest tech companies was my dream. And so I'm obviously doing both. I'm playing with ideas, everything from coming up with ideas on what kind of engines should be built for cars in the future to working on software, which really became my passion as I got into computer engineering. But I was planning to go work for somebody. And so I applied for all these places, and my GPA was low enough. I had a 2.7 by the time I graduated on all 4.5 years that I couldn't get even interviews at John Deere, the electrical engineering group at John Deere here in Fargo. And so eventually I got finalist in Microsoft, flew out to Seattle, didn't get that job either. The guy I flew out there with from Harvard, he had a 35 on his ACT. I had a 27, which was cool, but not anywhere close to what he did. And so I just never could get that figured out. Landed at an opportunity here in Fargo as an intern for Fargo Automation, and Kevin Bifford, who's a friend now. And then they had to make some changes at their org in the middle of this, right before summer, and they laid off all the interns. And I had been working on the idea, which became Myriad Mobile at the time, and I just went for it because I didn't know what else job. I couldn't get a real job apparently, so I went for it.
That's really funny, your story, because that sounds exactly like my story back in 2001, 2002, when the economy was a little bit tough. I had interned at a place called Unisys doing software development, and I had started OnSharp. It sounds like you similarly had started Myriad Mobile, kind of to gain experience and to learn entrepreneurship and stuff and to be a job. And sometimes the economy just puts you in a position where you're able to just go do the thing and you don't have many other choices. And it sounds like that was the case for you too.
It's crazy. I went to college in 2008, during the financial crisis. I had no idea that was going on. To be honest, I was just oblivious to that. So people were losing their jobs everywhere, and I was in college, didn't care. But coming out of it, it wasn't like it was a roaring economy for a while. And so I think it's 2011, we went full time on this idea that was Myriad Mobile and eventually software and became what Bushel is today. I mean, I had $700 in my bank account. I remember that number, and I was living in a house with 7 other dudes. And so that was my plan, was I'm going to figure out how to make enough money to pay myself something next month. And it was wasn't just me. Ryan Ragus and I together were doing this that early. Yep. And both of us were pretty broke. But we were both renting a place with friends, and we just made it work.
So I know you were in the NDSU Tech Incubator for a while. Talk about that a little bit and how that helped you and the experience of being in the incubator.
Yeah, we started we went from, working from the dorms to getting an opportunity to have an office at the incubator at the time. And it was wild. We had all kinds of bad ideas, some good ideas, some execution, not all, but we got an office there, and that helped us look professional. Like, our biggest problem was we were 20 years old.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't married. We didn't know how to cut our hair. Like, we were generally just not figured out. And you go to a business meeting and try to tell somebody to write you a check for, at this time, it was like thousands of dollars for a deal. And now, today we would never even consider doing something.
That was a huge deal.
That was a big deal. Couple grand. Heck yeah, dude. So we had to figure out how to look professional, and we didn't really know how to do that. But we had at least an office that looked like we knew what we were doing. If you see pictures from back in the day, I mean, my hair was long like some hippie, and Ryan was trying to wear a suit but didn't know how to do his hair, and it was just a funny picture.
And if I remember right, I think you guys used to get in trouble for walking around barefoot, stocking foot in the incubator.
Yeah.
So
Drago here in Fargo was one of our first customers. He wrote a check to help us build the Spotlight bar app at the time. That was kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
Got our first check from him. NDSU Extension became a customer through the connections there. And eventually Bobcat walked into our office in the early days while I was standing there with no shoes on, and Ryan had a suit on because he was going to a meeting. And a guy named Spencer, who I'm now in the same office downtown with in the Black Building, he works out of there with Bobcat.
Okay.
He said, "Hey, could you help us talk to our machine with a phone? Looks like you guys do apps. Could you help us?" And we're like, "Whoa, that would be amazing." And so we told him we could, even though we didn't know how to do it. We figured it out, and we helped build Bobcat's Max Control.
So how long was it just you and Ryan, and when did you start hiring employees?
It was almost never just Ryan and I. So from the beginning, my brother Nathan was in high school, and I had sent him the same YouTube stuff I was watching to learn how to build Android apps. 2 weeks go by, and he's better than I am at it. This is like, he's a savant, basically. And so he has been along this journey the whole time, Nathan. And then we constantly had this made-up internship program for Myriad Mobile. That was just whoever wanted to come and work for free for the summer and get good at software with us, you could join us. And we would like pay for your computer and like basics and stipend. And then eventually we had the STAR program from North Dakota where we could pay interns and we get credit. So we did that. And then I actually interned myself. I got internship credit for my own company through computer engineering, so I could skip a couple credits. So that's how we got started. It was almost never just Ryan and I, because neither of us were software people per se, but we were trying to figure out the business, and we had all kinds of ideas. So we always had young, talented people that were helping us build this thing. So
how long did you run Myriad Mobile, and kind of what point did you get it to before we'll go into your pivot?
2016 was so from 2011 to 16 was like the core of Myriad Mobile. We went a little crazy. We got over our skis, spent a little too much money, but we had about a $3 or $4 million business that we had built revenue-wise, barely making any money, mostly losing money, depends on the month. And then we had this realization that Ryan had, which was we should solve this agriculture problem around scale tickets. And he saw it at the sugar beet problem at those companies, and then at the elevator. And that's what started this journey towards building a product, because everything before that we were doing services.
Yep. So in that stint with Myriad, what's the biggest lesson you feel like you learned as an entrepreneur as you look back in terms of like what I might have done differently, or just reflecting back?
I think the biggest takeaway, Ryan and I both probably would say, is like focus really matters in your business. And if you're trying to be a pro services company where you do software for every industry, you're not going to be good at anything. And so we would go from like one meeting with Drago and the team talking about the bar app to trying to pitch Sanford on like the next app that they needed, and we didn't know anything about their business. It was really hard to get good at that. And so we said we should focus at some point and pick some industries we wanted to focus on. And agriculture was one of 3 that we had picked early on. And then eventually, like, we should just do agriculture. And wouldn't it be cool if we didn't have to sell every hour every single month to get revenue? And let's build a product that people want to pay for.
And that's the key. I mean, and it's a hard transition to make from a service business to a product business. It's like starting over, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, we were told like 100 times that it was going to be really hard to go to product in a software SaaS business, software as a service. It took we're still reeling from figuring out how to do that this many years later, like 10 years later. It's still challenging. Wow. So yeah, it's crazy. So we did that, and in 2016 and 17, we worked on this idea that became Bushel. We rebranded in 2019 as the Bushel company.
Awesome. All right, well, we're going to take a break. We're visiting with Jake Joraanstad, CEO and co-founder of Bushel. After the break, we're going to talk about how Bushel was born and why agriculture became their next big opportunity. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to the Business Blueprint. Today we're visiting with Jake Joraanstad, CEO and co-founder of Bushel. We spent the first segment talking a little bit about Jake's background, kind of how he got into software development, started Myriad Mobile with Ryan, his brother, and big group of interns that were willing to come work for free, which is a very smart idea. I like that. And
many of them went to work for Google and Apple and all kinds of cool places.
That's
to be
awesome.
honest. They all did better than we were going to do.
Yeah, and I think, and just before we continue, I think internships are such an important experience. I think if you're a young high school going into college student, use your summers wisely. I would go intern versus just working a random job. I mean, my internships that I had, my 2 years when I was a sophomore and a junior were super valuable from an experience perspective.
If I could,
sure you'd say the same.
Yeah, I would run 10 or 20 internships every summer if we could do it at Bushel. The problem is you have to have your team has to be able to manage them and like help them. Yeah. And if you have too many interns, then it's hard to like get anything done, or it's hard to do them right. So that's the challenge.
Exactly. Agree. All right. So now I want to jump into talking about Bushel. So for listeners who are unfamiliar, can you explain just exactly what Bushel does? And you kind of alluded to it earlier, but where the idea came from.
Yeah. So we're a software company. We don't sell inputs. We don't buy grain, but we help companies who do that really well with software. So think about a traditional grain elevator or a co-op, an ag retail seed company. If you're out there working with farmers and trying to give them a better digital experience, think about it's almost like e-commerce, but for ag. Like, hey, I want to be able to make a cash offer for my grain and sell it to you. I want to be able to see all of the transactional records that I have with the facility. As a farmer, I want to see how many deliveries of corn did I make last month, and how much do we have left on our contract to fill, or what's our average price for our wheat that we've sold. Mm-hmm. All of that matters to the farmer, and we put that into a single experience for the company that they do business with. So one of our first customers at Bushel was Arthur Companies here in North Dakota. Mm-hmm. Incredible business. Those guys have been awesome. We've been working with them for many years. We help them on their ag retail side now. We've helped them along the way on the grain side to help make it easy for their farmers to do business. So if you're a farmer out there using a Bushel app from one of us, thank you for working with us, and we're helping make that whole business easier. You can sign a contract on there. You can get notified when the facility's closing early, all that kind of stuff.
So let's go back to 2017 then. What did that look like before you guys built what you've built? Tell me what the farmer's experience and the elevator's experience used to be.
And so you'll still find it today a little bit like this, but most of the problem was everything was paper. So there's a paper scale ticket, which is where Ryan was like, why does a farmer still have to get this paper receipt at the elevator, and then it flies out of the coffee tin on the way home in the truck because the truck's hot, so you got the cab open, and you lose everything. So that was the first idea Ryan had, was like, how do we just stop that? And we're like, well, you could scan it, take pictures, but it would be way cooler if you delivered it and then that ticket just showed up on your account from the facility's system. And so that was the trick, though, was these are running old ERP systems. If you used to work at Great Plains Software, we're still connecting to your services at these elevators. They run still Great Plains a lot of times. And so we had to get the scale ticket out of the elevator system and into our cloud and then deliver it onto an app.
So your first challenge was to get the elevators on board.
They're the ones we had to sell. They're the ones buying it. The farmer gets to use it for free.
Okay. So is there standardization in the elevator software business? Or
not even a little bit.
So how'd you approach that challenge?
Well, we have a standard now that we've put together, but it took us, we spent the first 5 years from 2017 to 2022-ish just getting these systems to connect with what we've done. Mm-hmm. Many of them didn't have this concept of an API or this service you could just plug into. So we had to come up with the problem and solve it ourselves. So that was a big battle. And now we've seen every kind of scale ticket and contract and invoice you could imagine throughout the country. Turns out the Pacific Northwest does business way different than the Midwest, and the East does it different again. And so it depends on what part of the country you're in Texas versus North Dakota. Everything's a little different. And so we had to accommodate for all
what does
that.
Different mean when you say it's different?
Just the idea of what a contract means, or the idea of, hey, in the South, I didn't know this, but in the South, farmers don't have storage on farm. Well, here we have farmers that have storage as big as a grain elevator on their own farm, and so the way that they behave, farmers never have storage on their own farm, so they always pay the elevator to store the grain, even if they haven't sold it yet. Well, that's a different concept than North Dakota, what I'm used to, and so just everything is different depending on the region of the country, and we've had to figure out how to accommodate for all those things throughout the years.
So as you made this transition and you got started, talk about the first couple of years. How difficult was it? How easy was it? Or what were the challenges? What did you learn from those first couple of years trying to pivot from being a software for anyone, building anything for anyone to focusing on this product?
Well, what we figured out was that we probably couldn't just build this product and sell it enough to replace that other revenue. That was a trick. So we went and raised capital, and we raised $1 million, the first capital raise that we did, $1.5 million actually, and it was from local families here in North Dakota, from Howard Dahl to the Gen 7 fund out of the forum. Early investors bet on us. John Wanzik said, hey, we're going to help you raise this capital, and we took that and went and built this company. And we have since raised a total of almost $100 million of capital, which is a lot. And I still have to return all that to my investors, just so we're clear. That's true success, is returning capital and hopefully add an increase to those investors.
So I've never done that before. I've ran onshore for 26 years. I've always self-funded it. I've obviously grown very slow and methodically. You've taken a different approach, raising money, trying to grow quicker. What have you learned from that experience?
Well, I would say that there's a lot of things you learn things were really wild in 2020, 21, 22. COVID happened, but then the software world was like on fire in terms of like valuations of companies and capital you could just go and get. So at one point we raised $40 million in a single funding round. If I was to do it again, I would make that $40 million go a lot farther. Like we overthought how many engineers you might need, software, and then we built a lot of software. And most of it is useful today. But there is a realization you have, which is, hey, when you have to return this capital, how do you get to profitability? There's not an unlimited business to be had in agriculture. And what I've learned probably the most is, and it's a hard thing, ag has a really tough margin in general. Whether you're selling grain as a farmer or you're paying for inputs, that margin for all that business is really small. And so you have to be efficient, effective, and you certainly have to bring value in your software. And so I would say, hey, if I did it again, I would certainly burn less capital getting it done. And the tools that we've been given in 2026 with AI and the ability to build code without necessarily the same effort, and sometimes 10 times less effort, you could do this again for a different, totally different amount of money. It's kind of incredible what's possible now. And so there's lots to learn on that.
It's a crazy world today in the world of software development with AI for sure. So you said your dad passed when you were 12?
Yeah.
And so your mom's still around?
Yep.
So I think
she raised 3 boys.
I think it's always funny to think of how your parents feel when you're trying to be an entrepreneur, especially when they weren't entrepreneurs. I know my dad was very worried about me for a long time.
Same for my mom.
So I'm curious what your mom was like through all this.
When I was graduating NDSU, I'll give you an example, in December of 2012, my mom asked me if I was going to go and apply and get another job. And I said, Mom, I have like 15 employees. I got to run this company. I'm not going anywhere. And she's worried about my resume and like, well, will I be able to make as much as my friends who actually graduated from computer engineering and went and got a real job? And I was making like half what they were making at the time. Yep. Maybe I make more than them today. It depends. But that was a bet I was making. And my mom has always been worried about us, especially now that my younger brother's employed at Bushel.
Is he still with
Nathan's still at Bushel. Okay. And my wife works for the finance team. I'm not trying to build a family business, but all of them have ended up here in Fargo and working at Bushel. So, yeah, she's very concerned for our well-being of our whole family. If like Bushel goes under, then this is kind of game over. We all got to go get a real job.
That is funny. All right, well, we're going to take another break, but when we come back, I want to dig into a little bit more of the technology and how it's transforming ag and talk a little bit about AI and what you guys are doing there. So we'll be right back. Welcome back to the Business Blueprint. I'm your host, Joe Sandeen. We're with Jake Joraanstad from Bushel today, talking entrepreneurship, talking about his beginnings with Myriad Mobile, pivoting to a product from a service business, which is not an easy thing to do. And what I want to talk about a little bit now is just generally technology in the ag field. So, Jake, how has the ag industry changed from a technological standpoint in the last 10 years?
Not a lot. The concepts of a grain elevator or an ethanol plant, retailer and a mill, pretty similar. There has been, us and a few other players have brought some new software to the table for sure that wasn't here before. But the fundamental layer of like this ERP accounting framework and system that they all run is pretty ancient still. So there's pretty big gaps in this space, quite a bit. And one of the things we've been trying to bring everybody forward on is payments in agriculture as well. We call, the sort of fintech business.
Yeah.
Paper checks, 80% of farms still get paid on a paper check, 85%. It's crazy. Like, we're like the only country in the world that still does paper checks. And then agriculture does the most of anyone.
Are those numbers literally today's numbers?
Yeah.
So why do you think that is? And do you think it's going to move substantially?
There's a few reasons. One is that if you're a farm and you have a lien with your lender, you can't get ACH payment, for example, to your bank account, direct deposit, whatever you want to call it, because you have to have a two-party check. It has the lender's name on it and yours. You have to get two signatures to deposit it.
Okay.
That's
so
like
there's some complication there that makes it tougher.
And supposedly people like getting checks. I don't believe it. And then there's like, if I want to pay a fertilizer bill for $30,000, you can't do a credit card typically, because that 3% transaction fee is like the whole margin on fertilizer. And so there's a lot of reasons. And so we spent the last 4 years just banging our heads and working hard to solve payments in ag. And so we've built this thing called the Bushel app that has your bank account in it. So we have a high interest earning bank account for the farmer.
So you will also offer a bank account through Bushel?
We do.
Okay.
It's called the Bushel business account. The farmer can open it online in 3 minutes. They can put cash in there from their farm. 2.75% interest you get paid by having cash in this thing, which is pretty competitive.
Yep.
No minimums. And then we worked on the solve for liens, which is the most recent thing. So what we can do is we can let our elevator customer use our lien service, kind of like a title company model. They can issue a payment to the farmer electronically, and then Bushel resolves the lien holder's situation and either sends the money to the lien holder that's required or lets them sign off electronically, and the farmer can get the money paid directly into their bank account. Right now, it's an impossible task.
So how did your team kind of figure out how to solve that? Like, over the years, have you brought in additional expertise on your leadership to kind of like chart that course and understand how to move in that direction?
I eventually brought in like a guy named Tony, who's our chief payments officer. He literally helped build SoFi.
Okay.
Like, if you know that business at all, like student loans, lending, bank account for.
So
like,
he understands it. He's been there, done that. Okay.
And as he came in, he helped us get the banking situation figured out. We were struggling with the bank we were working with at the time, and he moved us on to like a much better platform. And so we have just been accelerating. That was like a year ago now. And so we have like a couple thousand bank accounts that we've opened with farms around the U.S., in addition to like all these other payments transactions that we're doing. So we let elevators now and retailers accept card processing, so they can accept cards if they want. They can decide who pays for the fee. They can do online bank transactions. They can do now settlements to the farmer with liens, which is a brand new thing from us. So we've been working hard on that. That's been a big part of what we've been spending time on.
Would you argue you're purely on the software side, or do you guys build out hardware integration pieces as well on the farm?
Thankfully, we've never touched hardware. If we have any integration with hardware, it's still via software. We hook up with John Deere Ops Center. We hook up with your.
So it's more information passing between other systems.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. But we've avoided hardware this whole time. The closest thing we ever did to hardware was working with Bobcat on their machines.
So is it hard to say no to some of these things that you could do? Like, what's that process been like of looking at all the software you could build and all the things you could integrate with, and you only have so many resources? And
that's the challenge. It's not hard to say no because we can't say yes. We don't have enough people or time, but it is hard to figure out what you should work on. That's a really big problem. And then AI comes into the game, and now you can do like 10 times more software in an hour or in a day or in a month than you could before. And now we're actually back to the other problem, which is, well, what do we do that's going to provide value? Because we could do anything pretty quick, but just because you build it does not mean people will come. That's a real problem. And everybody's building an app right now. You could go build an application this evening, and tomorrow you could be on this show talking about it. It's incredible. But that doesn't mean you'll have any customers.
So how, other than in development, how else is AI impacting your business?
There's this thing everybody's talking about in the last 6 months called the SaaS apocalypse, which is, hey, software companies are dead. You no reason to pay somebody for software because you can just build it yourself.
Yeah, I want your take on that.
Well, so far that's not true, I would say. I would say it's scary, and we should not ignore the fact that you can wake up tomorrow as a relatively competent person and build some things that Bushel's built, for sure. You can. You probably can't go get the bank account stood up. You probably can't. There's some things that are really hard, but again, like, it doesn't matter if you have no customers. And so there is an internal challenge, which is, should companies that we would normally sell to, should they buy our software? And are we moving the needle day to day, week to week fast enough in new product for them that they don't need to think about building it because we're becoming the experts for them?
Mm-hmm.
Or should they build it themselves? Because there's a lot of IT people inside organizations, especially big ones. They're like, well, we could build that. Like, we used to fight that all the time. You know it. Like, they should build it themselves or should pay somebody to build it. Well, that's even more interesting now because technically they could build it. Before, they weren't even capable of doing it. And now they can, but can they maintain it? Can they actually have the insights that somebody like Bushel might have by working with 250 companies? I don't know.
Yeah, and I think what people are realizing as they try this is there's so much more than just building the software. It's hosting it, maintaining it, scaling it, keeping it secure. And then if you go build your own thing, I mean, there's other components of like SOC 2 compliance and PCI compliance,
where all that stuff.
Yeah. So you really want to go and have to worry about all that stuff. I think it's just going to take a little bit more time. I feel like we're getting close, but people are going to realize like, okay, everyone's not going to just ditch their SaaS. I mean, maybe edge case things that you could build quickly, like a utility, but like your core systems, I mean, I just don't think
you need somebody to care about it, right? But
Yeah.
more importantly, I just believe that regardless of that outcome, if a software company like Bushel can show that we can harness that power better than they can, deliver better product faster with more insights because we work with more companies that have these problems, we can be around for the long term. But we have to go fast. We have shifted our team from, our Codex bill a few months ago was close to zero. Some licenses to use $15,000 this month, and it doubled from the previous month, and it might double one more time. That's pretty wild. Spending a few $100,000 a year to build faster, and we're only like a 75-person team, but like, man, that's great. That's like a whole 3 salaries of people, and just software of AI tools we're using.
So you're trying to move a decent sized team forward on AI, obviously quickly. Has that been a challenge, or what's it been like to get everyone moving at the right clip to adopt the new AI tools?
Sometimes it feels like there was a moment where I felt like I was fighting a union in my own shop. It was like, hold on, guys. What do you mean you don't think it's good? What do you mean it's not going to work? Like, tell me why. And of course, every 3 months, it was significantly getting better. Yeah. And so their argument the last time we talked was no longer relevant. And then it happened again and again and again. And so today, like, if you're not using these tools at Bushel, you probably aren't going to have a job. Like, you have to 10X basically right now. And it does cost us a little more on the front end and hard costs with the AI tools, but I don't have to hire 5 more engineers to do a job that we would have had to do that before. And so we can afford to do that because we can deliver product way faster. Yeah.
We were talking on the break about Cursor and them getting acquired by SpaceX. And I use Cursor a lot. And I remember maybe a year and a half ago when I first tried it, it was terrible. I mean, it made a lot of mistakes. Like, there were times when I questioned, like, oh my gosh, I would get stuck. And I think the lesson that I've learned is, like, I can't just try something once and write it off. You got to come back to it because this stuff is moving so quickly. Now I use it and it's right 9.9 times out of 10. It nails it.
If you're listening and you haven't gone back to try some of these tools that you thought were terrible, like 3 months ago even or 6 months ago, you are going to be wrong. Try again because you can't believe it. I mean, I just wrote a document this morning using Gemini's help at the office to explain to my team some things. It was just mind-blowing. That would take me like 2-3 days working on that. And I just put my basic thoughts in and then iterated, and it was done this morning. Just like mind-blowing. It's really good. It's like really good.
So what excites you most about the future of agriculture?
Oh, man. Ag has been really tough, like for 4 years now, 3 or 4 years. The margins have been terrible. The inflationary costs of everything in ag has not been met with the increase in price of crops. So commodity agriculture in particular has been really hard. Thankfully, there's been some offsetting things like cattle's been better during that time and protein in general, but we're like ag's struggling. And the only path forward in ag is for tools like ours and others to deliver more efficiency, especially in rural America where there's no more people to fill those jobs. And you can't add big costs because you already have a low margin. So you have 2 problems. You have not enough labor and you have a low margin. And so the only path there is actually something that looks like software where it's it's worth 5 or 10 times less than what you're getting out of it. So it's delivering ROI You have to do that. And I'm hopeful for that in ag, but it's slow to adopt in ag. I mean, we have 250 companies we work with. There's like 3,000 out there. So what are they all doing? And they might be on a competitor, but a lot of them just haven't evolved yet.
It is amazing how ag moves pretty slow in that regard. And I think, you build your systems and you have a way of doing things and you kind of like to stick with it.
And it works. They're still loading trains out of an elevator. The farmer is not the problem. I want to point that out. The farmer is an absolute adopter of technology, and they get one shot a year most often in the U.S. to get it right with their crop.
Right.
And yet they adopt more than their facilities they work with. The facilities are the ones stuck in the mud in old systems. I mean, we're still running AS400s from IBM in the 90s at a lot of these facilities. That is not okay.
Yeah, I'm very hopeful that over the next 10 years, there's going to be a lot of these legacy systems that finally get converted and get
AI should be able to help with that.
Yep, and I think AI is going to play a big part in that. All right, well, we're going to take another break, but when we come back, more with Jake Joraanstad from Bushel. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Business Blueprint. My name is Joe Sandeen, visiting with Jake Joraanstad, CEO and co-founder of Bushel. We've had a lot of fun conversation about ag and tech and Jake's beginnings and walking around barefoot at the incubator and all that great stuff and all the lessons he's learned. But I want to get into some personal things a little bit. So first of all, I want to talk about your family. So you've adopted some children, Jake.
Yeah.
I want you to tell us about that.
So my wife and I, we had our son. He's 9 now. And we started the journey of adoption. We chose Haiti. I had been to Haiti after the earthquake in 2011, that disaster. And then we had both been to the Dominican together and same island. And we felt like if we're going to adopt, we would want to adopt from a place that we had some relation to and had friends in Haiti still. And so we picked Haiti. 6 years went by, 4 of which we were just waiting for the process to go.
So you had made the decision. It just took that long to work through the process.
We did. Yeah, we started. We even I think 6 years after signing the paperwork basically. And the last 2 years, we were matched with 2 little girls, not little girls, 2 girls from Haiti. One at the time, I think 5 and 8 or whatever it was, 5 and 9. And a couple years went by, and before we could get them all the paperwork done. The U.S. did a great job. We had visas and everything ready to go. But Haiti, during the time of our adoption effort, the president of Haiti got assassinated. The country was invaded by gangs, and in particular, the city of Port-au-Prince was invaded by gangs. And they would say 85 to 90% of the city was controlled by gangs, which is their capital. It'd be like the gangs running D.C., right? Totally insane. Our girls were in Port-au-Prince. And eventually, this is at the end of the Biden administration and at the new Trump administration, same transition, the airport was shut down. The international airport was shut down in Haiti. And our U.S. government told us we couldn't go to Haiti to get the kids because it was too dangerous. They said, we will not come get you if you go there. So how do we get our girls out? We got our paperwork, and then we didn't know what to do. And so long story short, a group called Gray Bull Rescue we found out about. They're paramilitary. These guys are ex-Navy intelligence, absolute ballers. And we had a group of families talking to them, and they said, we can get your girls out of Haiti. We can get your kids out of Haiti. There's 15 families that want to get kids out of Haiti. But only Mary Beth and I had our paperwork done. So I had called all the senators and congressmen. They're all helpful, but couldn't do. Haiti had to do something, not the U.S. And we don't tell other countries what to do. They have to follow the rules too. So we raised some capital from our friends and family. Not some. It cost $70,000 to put this mission together. And at the end of getting to the end of that money, we had one other family got their paperwork, and there was another girl. So there's 3 kids in Haiti that had their paperwork. And so the mission changed. They dropped the person off the U.S. team, and they made room for the other girl. And we flew to Tampa in June last year. It's almost exactly a year ago. And we sat in the control room in this paramilitary operation, and these guys loaded up on a private jet that was donated that can't be insured in Haiti. Cannot insure a jet in Haiti. It's the only country in the world that can't insure a jet. They flew into the private airport to the north, or the, I guess, more public airport, transitioned to a helicopter flew the helicopter over it was the only bird in the sky, flew over the country of Haiti and landed in Port-au-Prince at a safe site that they had set up, and somehow had all three of these kids. I don't even know how this happened. All three of the kids from the orphanage and the safe house were at this site with their paperwork, and they loaded them on a dang helicopter as there's gangs shooting, not at them, but around the site, fighting on the streets and whatever, and flew out of that city with these three girls. They call it jackpot. Jackpot was a special word we heard on the radio when they got the kids. He said, if I have my hands on these kids, their life improved by 90%, and we got 10% to get home, and we're not getting home without them. And so they got on the helicopter and flew them to the northern part of Haiti, and then flew the jet home to Tampa, and we had our kids in like a less than 24-hour mission. It was like 18-hour mission.
That's an amazing story. So you're like in on it the whole time. You can hear what's going on.
Yeah, on and off. They didn't have very good service, and so it's like an internet relay kind of thing they're running. I mean, they use Signal, like all these tools that you think about that are sort of secured. They're using that stuff.
So this is only about a year ago.
1 year ago, exactly, in June. Yeah.
So two girls?
Two girls. They're 7 and 13.
Yeah, and I saw you this winter/spring at a basketball game, I think, and I hadn't seen you forever, and I had no idea that you had adopted two girls. That's such a cool story. So what
3 kids.
What spurred you to adopt versus having more children yourself?
It's a good question. It's weird because when you go to adopt, they always assume you can't have more kids, and we could have more kids. But Mary Beth and I agreed that we would adopt if we could. And so we were like, well, let's do this now. We didn't know it was going to take 6 years, but we chose that path. It's kind of weird in adoption because they always assume you can't have more kids, so therefore you're adopting. But we wanted to do that, and so I mean, we're in the best country in the world, in the whole world, and Haiti is probably the worst country, at least in the Western Hemisphere. And so we felt like if we could do that, it turns out it's really expensive to get kids from Haiti, but especially on helicopters. But with friends and family help, we got it done.
That's an amazing story. That's awesome, Jake.
They've been here a year. Their English is great. They all imagine being 5 years in an orphanage. You know, the little one's almost her whole life, and the older one, and she went here and then to middle school, 7th grade. 5 years in the orphanage, straight to middle school in the U.S.
Oh my gosh!
But she did well. She got A's, B's, and like 1 C in her school this year. So
they're
pretty proud of them.
That's awesome. All right, before we're done here, I want to ask you about hobbies. I know you're pretty passionate about having hobbies, and you have one in particular that you're very into. You want to tell us about that?
Well, I believe that entrepreneurs, especially if you're a business owner, you have to have a hobby that, you have to have family support you in your faith, I would argue. It's probably the first thing. And then your business. And the fourth thing that needs to be somehow in there is a hobby. Like, what do you do to get a brain break? That's not family, that's not your faith, and it's not your business. And for me, it's just cars, automotive, and racing. So I've got a car shop in North Fargo, cars and motorcycles with my buddies. We work on stuff Wednesday night and Sunday afternoons, like literally almost every week. And then once in a while.
You've always been a car guy?
Yeah, I was a Fast
kid?
and the Furious generation.
Okay,
I went to that movie when I was like 11 or something.
But like, were you always a tinkerer, hands-on with cars?
No, I learned that over time. My friends taught me how. They would make fun of me. I'm still not the most talented mechanic, but I can do a lot now.
Well, I was looking at the Myriad Motorsports Instagram feed before the show, and there's some pretty cool pictures of you racing. And I actually saw was it July of 2024? Your car started on fire.
Yeah, that's the problem with the family and the hobby problem. Road America 24. I'm going 100 miles an hour in a race against 50 other cars, and I'm like in, I don't know, mid-pack Larry over here. I'm probably like 15th or something. I think I was actually 10th when that happened. But anyways, all of a sudden the car gets hot, and usually that's like the radiator exploded, and it feels hot inside because that's in front of you.
Yeah.
But I didn't know what was going on. The car was still going 100, so clearly it was working. I looked at the mirror, and all I saw was orange flames, and it took my brain like a second to realize, like, those flames are in my car. They're not like somebody else's car. They're in the rear. So
what do you do? What's your first instinct?
The fuel tank was on fire. I didn't know of everything at the time, but the first thing you do is you have to, I'm going 100. You can't just jump out of the car. So you have to stop the car. So I slammed the brakes. I park in the worst possible place on the whole track. It's called the kink. People crash there all the time. I park in the grass, like park meaning slid into the grass and jumped. I'm trying to get out, and you got everything hooked up. All this crap is hooked up to you, and I couldn't get out. It's like, and it's getting really hot. So hot that my eyebrows got fried, and my suit, I didn't know at the time, but my suit was burning. I was like, the flames were on me. And I finally got out, and you're trained to jump out the window. Well, I hadn't crashed, so I didn't have to go out the window, but I tried to get out the window like a fat kid. I'm like, what am I doing trying to get out of the window? And I could open the door and I rolled out, and I tried to pull the fire extinguisher thing in my car, and it just didn't work. It's a long story, but it didn't work. Oh. And so they showed up, and the fire guys at the track showed up and saved my car.
That's amazing.
We actually went racing later that fall with the same car after we fixed all the problems of why it was on fire.
Quite the interesting hobby you pick.
It's lovely.
I do sports cards, and I'm not going to start on fire doing that. So
you get to, yeah, it's a pretty expensive one. It's like horses, it's just a bad idea all around. There's like no money in racing, I can tell you that for sure.
But if you're having fun, that's what you're doing it for.
It's like a friend event. Like 10 of us went racing last weekend together, and only 2 of us drove. It's like you need a whole posse to do this thing.
Yeah. Well, that's all the time we have. Jake, thanks for joining me today. It was a fun conversation. Bushelpowered.com, am I correct, is the website if you want to learn more. And for the Business Blueprint, businessblueprintshow.com if you want to check out our other episodes. We will see you next time.